On Saturday, July 19, 2014, Atlantic Coast Marine Group was contacted by the United States Coast Guard requesting assistance with a reported oil spill off the North Carolina coast. The reporting source said it was located approximately 38 miles southwest of Beaufort Inlet and was reported to be in close proximity to a known wreck site. This area, as well as the rest of the North Carolina coast, has been given the name Graveyard of the Atlantic. This area is littered with shipwrecks that date back as far as Blackbeard's pirate ship, Queen Anne's Revenge, and as recent as last weekend's pleasure boater. There are also many shipwrecks here that date back to World War II. German U-boats made numerous attacks on merchant vessels off the North Carolina coast during World War II. Using the position that the reporting source passed along, it plotted up with the wreck site of the motor tanker Papoose. As Atlantic Coast Marine Group crews worked to ready equipment and its divers, the planning team and the operations coordinator began to research the wreck.
It was important for us to understand the cargo that was potentially on board. It was important for us to understand how the wreck site laid out, how to deploy divers, and how to start a search plan for this wreck site.
It was understood that on March 18, 1942, motor tanker Papoose was transiting from Providence, Rhode Island to Port Arthur, Texas in ballast. So where was the oil coming from? Is this the wreck of the motor tanker Papoose or that of another ship? Atlantic Coast Marine Group began to dig deeper and quickly found that roughly 2 years prior, a team of researchers had actually deemed this the wreck site of the motor tanker W.E. Hutton. On the night of March 18, 1942, motor tanker Papoose and motor tanker W.E. Hutton were in close proximity of each other when they came under fire from the German U-boat 124. While the motor tanker Papoose was transiting south in ballast, the motor tanker W.E. Hutton was transiting north from Smith's Bluff, Texas, with 65,000 barrels of No. 2 heating oil on board. Furthermore, when the vessel sank, it flipped upside down before resting on the sea floor, trapping what was left of its cargo inside the hull of the ship.
So as our office started to do further investigations into this, we found that this was actually the wreck site of the W.E. Hutton and not that of the Papoose. And that instantly turns us to a higher level. The Papoose was transiting in ballast, she was empty. The W.E. Hutton, however, had 65,000 barrels of heating oil on board. So this really started to make sense on where our discharge was coming from. Furthermore, the W.E. Hutton, when she sank upside down. So the tanks that had vents in them were not able to vent the fuel, and all this fuel is trapped underneath the hull, laying on the bottom of the seafloor.
On the early morning hours of Sunday, July 20th, 2014, Atlantic Coast Marine Group's crews reached the site of the spill, roughly 38 miles offshore and in approximately 140 feet of water. A heavy oily sheen was noticed on the surface of the water. It was trailing down current with a heavy odor of fuel. Atlantic Coast Marine Group quickly deployed one of its dive teams to provide an assessment and survey of the wreck, primarily looking for the source of the leak and the size of the fracture. Attempts to reduce the flow of oily discharge were made by securing temporary valves into the areas of visible discharge. On Monday, July 21, 2014, Atlantic Coast Marine Group's dive teams were back in the water continuing to survey and assess the wreck. By the end of the second day, Atlantic Coast Marine Group crews had stopped the leak and surface water had begun to clear up. A full assessment of the wreck site was complete and a map of the wreck site had been completed. Tuesday, July 22, 2014, Atlantic Coast Marine Group's operations team noticed a change in the weather approaching and decided to send divers back down in an effort to secure a more permanent patch. This was to ensure that it would hold through the coming days of foul weather and allow the Atlantic Coast Marine Group more time to devise a plan for extracting the oil from the wreck site. An epoxy product was injected into the hull through the fracture to create a stronger hold. Atlantic Coast Marine Group responded to the wreck site of the motor tanker W.E. Hutton with three main focus points. The first objective was to locate and stop the discharge of oil from the wreckage. Our second objective was to ensure the minimal environmental impact from this discharge. The area is frequented by sports divers, recreational fishermen, and commercial fishermen. Local businesses rely on this area for their daily dive charters, and vacationers enjoy diving such a historic wreck. In close proximity to the location of the wreck lies Cape Lookout National Seashore, Shackelford Banks, and the Rachel Carson Estuarine Reserve. The Rachel Carson Reserve is part of the National Estuarine Research Reserve System and is located directly across Taylor's Creek from the historic town of Beaufort in Carteret County, North Carolina. The islands of the reserve are more than 3 miles long and less than a mile wide. The entire Rachel Carson component is 2,315 acres. The North Carolina National Estuarine Reserve was established to preserve the fragile natural areas that make up the third largest estuarine system in the country, and the variety of life that is found there. The islands and estuarine waters of the Rachel Carson Reserve are strongly influenced by river and inlet dynamics with twice daily tides. The resulting mix of fresh and salt water creates a pristine estuarine environment where juvenile fish and invertebrates find shelter and food. Diverse arrays of important coastal habitats are found at the site, include tidal flats, salt marshes, ocean beach, soft bottom, shell bottom, dredge spoil areas, sand dunes, shrub thickets, submerged aquatic vegetation, and maritime forest. More than 200 species of birds have been observed at the site, which is located within the Atlantic Migratory Flyway. Many species are considered rare or decreasing in number. The site is an important feeding area for the Wilson's plovers in the summer and piping plovers in the winter. The shrub thicket of Middlemarsh supports an egret and heron rookery. A diverse array of mammals inhabit the islands include river otter, gray fox, marsh rabbits, raccoon, and a herd of feral wild horses. Atlantic bottlenose dolphins, diamondback terrapins, sea turtles, and many species of fish and invertebrates are found in the estuarine waters surrounding the site. Finally, Atlantic Coast Marine Group's third objective is to provide a cost-effective means to remediate this site. We always ensure our clients the most cost-effective approach to their situation while also providing a sound solution. At this time, Atlantic Coast Marine Group has secured the leak and provided assessments to the United States Coast Guard. Atlantic Coast Marine Group and the United States Coast Guard continue to work together to ensure the safety of the fishermen and sports divers as well as marine life.